They say some books were erased from the Bible, hidden, burned, or simply deemed too dangerous to survive. But one stands above all the rest, an ancient text that tells a story long before the flood, even before Genesis itself. A time when heaven and earth intertwined, and beings who called themselves angels walked among men. That book is the Book of Enoch. For centuries it was condemned as heresy. Scribes burned it, churches banned it, but a few copies survived. And what they describe is unlike anything you've ever been told about the beginning of humanity. According to Enoch, mankind was not born in ignorance, it was taught, guided by beings of light, who soon became the cause of its downfall. The book reveals what happened before the Great Flood, the descent of the Watchers, angels who defied divine command, took human wives, and revealed forbidden knowledge to the earth. From that moment, the world was never the same, and maybe that's why the text was erased, because if what Enoch saw was real, then what we call myth might just be the only part of history we're still allowed to know. Enoch was not an ordinary prophet. He didn't just speak of the future, he was taken to see it. The book describes the moment he was lifted from the earth, guided by beings of light and carried through the heavens. What he saw there, no human had ever witnessed before. "And the wind lifted me," he wrote, "and I saw walls of fire, and wheels within wheels, and beings whose eyes flashed like lightning." Today, many would call it a spiritual vision. Others might say it was the first account of a journey beyond the atmosphere, an experience described with the only words he had, centuries before the concept of technology even existed. During this ascension, Enoch is taken through multiple levels of the heavens, each guarded by angels of increasingly incomprehensible form. He sees rivers of fire, mountains of crystal, and something he calls the throne of glory, surrounded by energy and sound. But the most unsettling part isn't what he saw, it's what he heard. A voice, commanding him to record everything, to write down every vision, every instruction, every secret revealed. Because according to the text, Enoch was not taken to heaven just to witness it, but to document the very laws that govern the universe. From that moment, he ceases to be merely a man. He becomes the celestial scribe, the messenger between worlds. And perhaps that is why his testimony became so dangerous. Because if he truly described what he saw, then heaven might not be just a spiritual realm, but a real domain, inhabited, structured, and much closer than we imagine. While Enoch was still recording the laws of heaven, something began to unfold on earth. The book describes a group of 200 angels, known as the Watchers, who observed humanity from afar until they decided to descend. They chose a place on earth, Mount Hermon, and there they made a pact. They swore never to return, never to betray one another. And they began to teach mankind what was never meant to be known. At first, they seemed like benevolent teachers. They taught agriculture, writing, metallurgy, astronomy. But soon, knowledge turned into power, and power into corruption. The Watchers taught men how to forge weapons, and women how to use charms and ornaments to seduce. What was once wisdom became domination. And from the union between angels and humans came hybrid beings, giants, the Nephilim, violent, insatiable, and beyond control. These mixed offspring ravaged the earth. They consumed everything around them until they began devouring human flesh. The world, according to Enoch, descended into chaos. The Watchers, unable to stop what they had created, watched as humanity destroyed itself under the weight of knowledge it was never ready to bear. And here, the tone shifts. Because in Enoch's words, the earth cried out to heaven, and the cry was heard. The faithful angels, horrified by what they saw, carried the complaint to the divine throne. And there the verdict was made, judgment was coming. The earth could no longer bear the weight of corruption. Rivers ran red with blood, the sky was covered in smoke, and the sound that once meant life had turned into a roar of despair. Enoch writes that the heavens heard the cry of the earth, and that's when judgment began. The faithful angels carried the plea before the throne, and the decision was clear. The Watchers would be punished. Their offspring, the Nephilim, would be destroyed, and the world would be purified by the flood itself. But before the sentence was carried out, Enoch received one last mission: to be the messenger between heaven and the fallen. He descended to earth one final time, not as a man, but as the bearer of judgment. And there, before the beings who had once been angels, he spoke the words that sealed their fate. You watched mankind with desire. You taught what was forbidden, and now everything you taught will be used against you. The response of the fallen was despair. They begged Enoch to intercede, to plead for mercy on their behalf, but their request was denied. Raphael was sent to bind Azazel, the leader among the corrupted, in the darkness of the desert. Michael the warrior descended to destroy the Nephilim, and Gabriel received the order to release the waters. The world would be cleansed, not just to punish, but to begin again. And as the rain began to fall, Enoch understood what it truly meant. History was not being erased, it was being reset. The rain fell for endless days, rivers became oceans, mountains vanished beneath the waters, and the ancient world was swallowed by silence. Men, giants, the fallen angels, everything that had been corrupted was wiped from the face of the earth. It was the end of an era. Enoch watched what was left, the skies burning, the sea covering all, and understood that the world would be rebuilt with no memory of what had happened. And with time, history itself would turn into myth. But the book ends with a warning. The fallen angels did not die. They were imprisoned in hidden regions of the earth, abysses of stone and ice, deserts untouched by the sun, places described as eternal prisons of darkness. And prophecy says that, in the end of days, those gates will open again. Enoch disappears from the scriptures soon after the flood. It is said he was taken back to the heavens, perhaps never to return. But the question he left behind still echoes to this day. If the watchers were imprisoned on earth, where are they now? Beneath deserts? Beneath oceans? Or in places we were never meant to find? What do you think happened to the fallen angels? Comment your theory and subscribe to discover the next forgotten story.